nearly a century, the dragons have been gone. Their bones remain, their legends remain, but the dragons themselves are extinct. And yet, beneath the surface of peace, the Seven Kingdoms remain divided. King Daeron, the second Targaryen, remembered by history as Daeron the Good, rules from King's Landing. His reign is prosperous. Trade flourishes. The realm heals from generations of war. But one shadow refuses to disappear. House Blackfire. A rival bloodline born from the same dragon lords. A family whose very existence threatens the future of the Targaryen dynasty. House Blackfire was created by one of the bastards of the Targaryen kings called Aegon IV Targaryen, or as he famously known as Aegon the Unworthy. His rule was treacherous, and his rule damaged the realm like never before, and the only good that came out of the tyrant king was his legitimate son, Daeron the Good, who he hated the most. At his dying bed, he did one last thing that would end up being a pain to his future dynasty. He legitimized all his bastards, and further he ended up giving the family's Valyrian steelsword Blackfire to his bastard son, Daemon, who then ended up creating House Blackfire and claimed that Prince Daeron II is an illegitimate child, and the only true successor of the Iron Throne is himself. Among those determined to destroy the threat called Blackfire, there was a man feared throughout Westeros, Brynden Rivers, known to history by another name, Bloodraven. Bloodraven was one of the 6 great bastards of King Aegon the Unworthy, half-brother to the king, pale as bone, eyes red as a wound. It was said of him that he saw things no man should be able to see. Some claimed he possessed 1,000 eyes. Others said he possessed 1, and that it was enough. Whispers carried from the western edge of Westeros to the farthest shores of Essos. An empire of ears, of eyes in corners, of secrets swallowed before they could be spoken. He called his network of informants his little birds. Small, quiet, everywhere. Nothing escaped his gaze, or so people believed. One day, his network uncovered something extraordinary. 3 dragon eggs. Ancient, petrified, hidden in the mysterious Shadowlands beyond Ashai. Bloodraven wasted no time. The eggs were transported across continents and seas before finally arriving in King's Landing. There, before the royal court, he presented them to King Daeron, placed them before the king himself, frail now, diminished by age. The king stared at the stone shells in silence, because every Targaryen understood what they represented. Not wealth, not power, hope. The hope that dragons might one day return. The hope that House Targaryen might reclaim the glory it had lost generations ago. But Daeron was old. The years had begun to weigh heavily upon him. His strength faded with each passing season, and so he decided to entrust the eggs to the man expected to inherit his crown. His eldest son. to the Iron Throne, a great warrior, a scholar, a prince respected by nobles and commoners alike, brilliant and just, feared by enemies, loved by those who served him. He was the great Prince Baelor Targaryen himself. Unlike many princes before him, Baelor was not obsessed with conquest. He was obsessed with understanding. He threw himself into the mystery of the eggs, poring over Valyrian texts so old the ink had faded to rust, consulting maesters who admitted, quietly, that they did not know. He tried what methods existed. None of them worked. The eggs remained cold. And then, as it so often does, something small changed everything. A hedge knight, a nobody, a wandering sword without a lord or a name worth remembering. He had done something reckless, something that, depending on who you asked, was either deeply foolish or the most honest thing anyone had done in years. He had beaten a prince, not just any prince, Prince Aerion Targaryen, the son of Prince Maekar, younger brother of Prince Baelor. The hedge knight, called Dunk, had been a squire once, seeking his knighthood confirmed so he could ride in the tournament. What he got instead was a sentence: mutilation, for striking a prince of the blood. The punishment was to cut off a hand and cut off a foot. Perhaps worse. That was the law, but Baelor saw something others did not: justice. And so the prince intervened. He advised Duncan to demand a trial by combat. Aerion answered with a challenge of his own, a trial of 7, an ancient form of judgment, rarely seen, almost never survived. As champions gathered on both sides, Duncan found himself one warrior short. Then, to the shock of everyone present, Prince Baelor stepped forward. Baelor Breakspear, heir to the Iron Throne, he would fight beside a hedge knight he barely knew. His younger brother Maekar was furious, but the challenge had been made. The gods would decide. The battle that followed was chaos, mud, steel, blood. Men died screaming beneath horses and hammers, stabbed by swords and lances. Through the confusion, 2 brothers found each other. Baelor and Maekar. For years they had stood side by side. Now they stood opposed. Maekar was stronger. Baelor was faster, more skilled. The duel swung in Baelor's favor. With a masterful strike, he knocked Maekar's mace from his grasp. The battle was over, or at least it should have been. One strike. That was all it would have taken. But Baelor hesitated. Compassion stayed his hand. And in war, a single heartbeat can change history. Maekar surged forward. His shield crashed into Baelor. The prince's sword flew from his grasp. Now both men were disarmed. Instinct took over. Each rushed towards the nearest weapon. Baelor reached for Maekar's fallen mace. Meanwhile, Maekar seemed to have sprinted towards Baelor's sword. Then, suddenly, someone grabbed Baelor from behind. He thought it was a knight from the King's Guard. In the confusion, he slipped away from the grasp and reacted. He swung, hard. At that exact moment, his footing slipped in the mud. The force of the blow multiplied. The mace connected with a sickening crack. The victim collapsed instantly. But in the fog of battle, Baelor never saw who he had struck. Then came the sound. A horn. The signal that the trial was over. Duncan had won. Arian was defeated. Justice had prevailed. For a brief moment, relief swept through the prince. The men he loved were alive. The realm had been spared another injustice, or so he believed. Moments later, a messenger approached, pale, shaking, terrified. He whispered something into Baelor's ear. The color drained from the prince's face. His eyes widened. And without a word, he ran. The crowd watched in confusion. No one understood. Then a voice cut through the silence. A single sentence. One that would change the history of Westeros forever. Prince Maekar Targaryen is dead. Silence. Absolute silence. The killer. Prince Baelor Breakspear. His own brother. Rumors spread immediately. Some whispered that the entire tournament had been a carefully arranged murder. Others dismissed the accusation. They knew Baelor. They knew the kind of man he was. But truth mattered little. The damage was done. Maekar was no more. The regret that consumed him was not only for the death itself, but for what came before it. He and Maekar had grown distant. The warmth between them, the closeness of brothers who had once known each other completely, had been replaced by something cold and unresolved. There would be no reconciliation now. That silence would follow Baelor for the rest of his life, and he would carry that burden for the rest of his life. Because that is often the curse of good men, to blame oneself for tragedies that were never intended. Yet guilt has a way of demanding payment, and Baelor intended to pay. When the funeral pyre was built, he made a decision. He would give up the most precious thing he possessed. He placed the 3 dragon eggs, rare beyond reckoning, the hope of a dynasty, onto his brother's funeral pyre. A sacrifice, a tribute. The only language left available to a man out of words. Brendan Rivers rejected the idea as the eggs were the hope for Targaryen dominance, but Baelor was steadfast on his decision. Bloodraven even suggested to keep at least 1 egg out of it, but the prince did not flinch. As flames consumed the body of Prince Maekar, Baelor stood in silence, watching, remembering, regretting. His face was the epitome of pain and grief as his younger brother's body was burning. Baelor decided to stay until the fire that burned his brother's body died off. Hours later, the fire finally died. The crowd began to disperse. Then, something moved. At first, no one noticed. A faint disturbance among the ashes. Then another. A crack. A screech. Small. Sharp. Impossible. The spectators froze. Some believed the sounds came from the prince's burning remains. Others feared something far worse. Then the ashes shifted, and from the blackened ruins of the pyre, 3 tiny creatures emerged, winged, scaled, alive. For 90 years, the world had believed dragons were extinct. Now, standing above the ashes of a dead prince, they had returned, and Prince Baelor Breakspear could do nothing but stare, because in that moment, the future of Westeros changed forever.